Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. So okay, maybe I'm just not as in tune with what will cross onto the Hot 100 as I thought that I was, especially when it comes to album tracks from big releases. I mean, I knew that Jay-Z's 444 would take the wide release to really land the Hot 100 probably next week, but I did think that there would be at least a few album tracks from Calvin Harris's last release, Funkway Bounces Volume 1, to have a chance, or maybe even a bit of traction for Kesha's big comeback single, Prang. But while, of course, it landed on the Canadian charts, thanks to not getting a full tracking week, it just missed the Hot 100. And what we got instead, well, it's something, I will definitely say that. So okay, before we get to all of that, our top 10, and once again, Despacito by Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, and the remix of Justin Bieber is holding on to number 1. And again, this should be surprising nobody, given that on-demand streaming and YouTube recovered, and it's now back to being dominant in nearly every format. And really, at this point, it's out so far in front that barring a sudden drop, I'm not really certain what's directly challenging it. I predicted that I'm the One by DJ Khaled and his posse could make a play beyond number 2, as it seems to still have a little bit of momentum on the radio, along with YouTube and streaming, but sales, they slipped this week, and it might not have enough going forward. Compare this to That's What I Like by Bruno Mars, which actually recovered up to number 3 despite weaker sales and YouTube, thanks to staying a little bit more solvent on radio and streaming than I personally expected, but it's also likely that it recovered more because DJ Khaled's Wild Thoughts with Rihanna and Bryson Tiller lost that big sales boost and just didn't manage to make up enough airplay to compensate, so it fell to number 4. Then, somehow still in the top 5, we have Shape of You by Ed Sheeran. And again, I like the song a lot, and it's still fading, but it's got enough weight on the radio that any losses will take time for it, especially if nothing below it can seriously challenge. And yeah, that's kind of the case for Humble by Kendrick Lamar, which is back up to number 6, where the slips on streaming and unstable radio are at least compensated for by a good sales week, although again, it's probably more because Believer by Imagine Dragons lost the album boost and dropped back down to number 7. Although its good radio prevented it from dropping that hard. And then, re-entering the top 10, almost purely for the purpose of pissing me off, I'm assuming we've got Sam Hunt's Body Like a Back Row, which has sustained longevity thanks to pop radio thinking this is deserving of any sort of attention, which says so much more than I even need to bother with here. And when you could combine it with some inexcusable sales, America, that's on you. Yeah. This is gross. It actually forced back Congratulations by Post Malone featuring Quavo to number 9, and considering it didn't really have that good of a streaming week and airplay is wavering, it might have actually stalled out there. On a slightly better note to end things off though, in our second top 10 entry, and a brand new one at that, Unforgettable by French Montana featuring Sway Lee hit number 10. It's here primarily on streaming and YouTube, but it's also got more airplay traction than I personally expected, so providing it doesn't stall out, I actually don't mind that it's in the top 10. It's a solid tune. Hope it sticks around. And on a different note, our losers and dropouts. In the latter category, the only ones really worth mentioning are Cold by Maroon 5 featuring Future, Good Drank by 2 Chainz featuring Gucci Mane and Quavo, both of them, they were on their way out naturally, and If I Told You by Darius Rucker, which did catch me a little bit off guard. I thought it might have a little bit more gas in the tank instead of just getting caught up in the seasonal change for country radio. But it's also probably why How Not To by Dan and Shay plummeted to number 100 in our losers this week. Beyond that, most of our other losers, they're non-singles that are fading out naturally. Signs by Drake off the debut last week went down to 54, Portland by Drake featuring Quavo and Travis Scott down to 90, and Loyalty by Kendrick Lamar featuring Rihanna down to 72. Now the one loser that continues to concern me is the alarming drop for Sign of the Times by Harry Styles. It's down to 73 already, and at this rate, if it doesn't slow down soon, it'll have a shot at missing the year-end list that could really use it. It's a great song. Meanwhile, if you take a look at our gains, things are most characterized by success for Calvin Harris and the Latin boom that seems to be blossoming in the wake of Despacito. In the latter case, we had the returning entry for Nicki Jam, El Amante to 58, and the considerable boost to Escapate Conmigo by Wisin and Ozuna. Although I will have to say I'm a little bit surprised that Calvin Harris didn't get more traction. Sure, Rollin' with Future featuring Khalid came back to 76, and Slide with Frank Ocean and Migos rebounded to 32, and Feels with Pharrell, Katy Perry, and Big Sean especially got a big boost to 26, but there were no new songs that showed up from the record, which, yeah, it's kind of disappointing because there was real quality there that I'd like to see either come back or debut on the charts. Thankfully, we still got the game for Versace on the Floor by Bruno Mars, which picked up considerably to 56 and seemed to have some actual legs beneath it. Good to see. The song didn't really seem to have initial traction thereon, and I'm happy it's back. It's a great track. But I want to get to our list of new arrivals, which I have to admit seems a little bit strange. Starting off with, of course, number 99, Extra Love by Future featuring YG.
Never loved me. Never really loved me. It's my lifestyle. It's my lifestyle.
So, for those of you who are not aware, no, this is not a new lead single for a third record that Future was planning to release this year. Instead, it's an added single digitally tacked onto the first self-titled album that was released earlier this year, and I'm honestly not certain if that's worse. I'm already not a fan of deluxe edition re-releases, and this takes that bad practice into even worse territory. I talked about this with Shawn Mendes earlier this year, and it's a nightmare for critics at least trying to get a handle when to cover an album as a whole. But anyway, this was the song that tacked on to Future's first ever collaboration with YG, and if I'm supposed to be impressed by this, I'm not. More confused than anything. It's not exactly bad, but it's not great either, especially as the sandy cracks against the skittery cascades and synths and deeper synths seem a fair bit lighter and hazier than Future usually rides against, and doesn't really have a stable enough groove to flatter YG. But when you get into the content, the confusion continues, because for as much as Future seems disgusted that this girl is just using him for his money, YG, he just seems entirely okay with it, including far too many cheap rhymes to tell that he really just phoned this verse in. The two artists, they don't really have a lot of chemistry, the mood just feels kind of disjointed, and I'm not certain if there's enough here to really benefit anyone or worth actually tacking onto this album. In other words, it's pretty mediocre. Next, number 89, Heartache on the Dance Floor by John Pardi.
Yeah, she moving through my mind. I gotta know her name, and I got to see her again. She's got me wondering, yeah, I'm just wondering where she is, where she is, where she is tonight. Where she is, where she is, where she is tonight.
Okay, there's a part of me that wants to find whoever at Capitol Nashville is picking out singles for John Pardi and beat them with a crowbar. This is an artist who has had success playing to explicitly neo-traditional country tones, and yet for some god-awful reason, they keep trying to saddle him with tones that play much more towards pop country. So instead of the title track of California Sunrise or She Ain't In It, which are both great songs, we're stuck with this, which, yeah, okay, does pick up some choppy guitar groove. It's actually matched by fiddle and steel guitar, which I like, but you're not convincing me that the hand claps throughout the song aren't programmed, or that echoed multi-tracking doesn't sound slicker than it probably should to fit with John Pardi's vocals. And hell, it's not even that this is a bad song. The writing trying to recapture a girl he saw in a bar and never really connected with actually does have a little bit of wistful charm to it. It kind of grew on me. But he's got better material off that last album, and I don't know why his handlers are pushing him in this direction. It can't all be Sam Hunt's fault, although I kind of want to blame him. But you know what, if I'm being honest with myself, it's actually a pretty good song, and I'm just nitpicking here. And in comparison to, again, that Sam Hunt crap, I would easily take a lot more of this. Good song. Take it. Number 87, Who Dat Boy by Tyler, the Creator?
Who that boy? Who him is? Who them boys? Nigga, who them is, nigga?
Why you niggas feel like that? Man, cause a nigga neck shit like that. Man, cause a nigga push real like that. Why you putting bad vibes in the air like that?
So here's something you might not know. All throughout the early 2010s when Odd Future's buzz was so big, Tyler, the Creator never had a solo song chart in the Hot 100. I mean, he had a featuring credit on a song with The Game and Lil Wayne, but beyond that, nothing crossed over, absolutely nothing. And yet, years later, after that whole buzz has died down, Tyler's got a song crossing into the Hot 100 with an uncredited verse from A$AP Rocky, and well, it's something, that's for damn sure. The very sparse, atonal synth fragments that open things up and touch against the squeals and strings before that massive drippy bass comes in and Tyler's very hoarse growl tries to crank up that intensity, and I'm not quite sure it works as well as he thinks it does. Don't get me wrong, his verses do catch some of the balance between violence and flossing, something that could potentially work, and he's certainly got the voice to hit that sort of intensity and maybe compensate for weaker bars against the atonal and unstable melodies. But am I the only one who thinks that A$AP Rocky just doesn't have the same presence in order to match him? Say nothing of wordplay that just feels kind of lightweight. Granted, Tyler's not exactly impressing on that front, with a few obvious flubbed rhymes that makes the song a little harder for me to appreciate as moody and intense. It's just a little bit unfinished and kind of sloppy. I don't know, it's listenable. It's got me curious for that upcoming album, but I gotta be honest, I've heard Tyler do better, and I have to hope that his experiments, they'll pay bigger dividends than this going forward. It's not bad, but I wouldn't really call it great either. Number 85, Bodak Yellow by Cardi B.
And I'm quick, cut a nigga off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money move. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money move. If I see you now speak, that means I don't fuck with you. I'm a boss, you a worker, bitch, I make bloody moves. Now she say,
you know, one thing that I've noticed in the newest crop of MCs coming up is that there aren't that many women with considerable buzz. What a shocker. At least to match their male counterparts with a similar style. I mean, Young Ma seemed like she would be a thing for a brief time, but her hype's now evaporated. So now we've got Cardi B, who you might all know more from her time on Love and Hip Hop than any actual recording career, even though she is dropping mixtapes. And it's a bad sign going into a song when she cites her major inspiration being Kodak Black, but honestly, I might actually prefer her flow to his. Sure, the flow is basic as hell, and there's entirely too many words and phrases that are just rhyme with themselves, and no, trying to say you arove somewhere instead of arrive, that's not clever, it's just sloppy, but it seems like she's got a better grasp of his very slippery delivery than he does, and her voice is certainly a lot more appealing than his. Yeah, the hollowed, glossy synth and trap hi-hats, there aren't anything all that special or new or challenging. It's not like there's anything that's appealing in the punchlines or wordplay that I haven't heard before, and if she's making so much, you have to wonder why she's still getting guys to buy her things after sex. But it also avoids most of the obvious slip-ups and asinine wordplay that cripples Kodak Black so frequently. And while Dreezy really does this sort of material much better with much stronger bars, haven't heard from her in a while, this at least is tolerable. I'd say pick up a little bit more traction, but I really can't predict what will happen with most trap songs these days, so I guess we'll see. Number 78, Rake It Up by Yo Gotti featuring Nicki Minaj.
Bag it up. Fuck it up, fuck it up, fuck it up, fuck it up. Bag it up, bag it up, bag it up, bag it up. Rake it up, rake it up, rake it up, rake it up. Bag it up, bag it up, bag it up, bag it up. I tell all my hoes, rake it up, break it down, bag it up, fuck 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 it up. Fuck it up, fuck it up, fuck it up, rake it up, rake it up, rake it up.
So apparently Yo Gotti's going back to what got him success on the back of his breakthrough single, collaborations with Nicki Minaj. Okay, that's a little bit crass, but let's be real here. While I might have preferred that Law had been a bigger single, the only reason you're hearing any buzz about Yo Gotti's collaborative mixtape with Mike Will Made is because this song hit the Hot 100. And honestly, I'm not sure if it's got the same stupid meme potential that at least helped get Down in the DM so popular. For one, it's not nearly as melodic, with a tiny little fragment behind the thicker beat, and even then it's pretty slow and doesn't really give Yo Gotti much to push against in a very Gucci Mane-esque flow on the verses. Now, it's clear he's got a little bit more of a sense of humor in his verses, and he's a little bit better of a rapper, although I'm certain that the only really good joke on the third verse comes in him sampling Too Short saying the word bitch. But again, the only reason that anybody's here is Nicki Minaj's verse, which rhymes China with itself 5 times in the opening lines, along with rhyming it with vagina, because of course she does. But she's got delivery with a little bit more variety to it, even beyond the punchlines, but still, without the central concept, it really does feel like a less interesting attempt to replicate a song that wasn't really all that good to begin with. In other words, I can see the environment where this is gonna get played, and you know what? Not on my speakers. Sorry. And finally, number 70, Gente by J Balvin and Willy Williams.
Mi música los tiene fuerte bailando y se baila así.
Okay, so I've been mostly ambivalent on the rising tide of Latin songs crossing over to the Hot 100. Most of the time, they just don't make much of an impact with me or just start to kind of blur together with a lot of the instrumentation, especially when you dig into some of the lyrical subject matter and translate it, which can feel pretty flimsy. It's been a while since I've heard a song that actively annoys me though, but J Balvin and Willy managed to create one, and yes, it's that goddamn squawking at the root of the melody that sounds like the warbling of a castrated alpaca, and it never changes or evolves, just more layers of noisy, clattering percussion that are just piled on, with the choppy stutters intending to mimic guitars, trying to add groove to a song that has none. It almost makes me feel like it's unfinished, needing something to accent J Balvin's utter lack of personality or swagger to really have any kick to it, but then you got Willy trying to do his best Pitbull impression, complete with the opening whoops. Yeah, let's not mince words. It's a pretty blatant ripoff of what Pitbull was churning out in like 2009 with Pitbull starring in Revolution, except somehow with even less personality and more annoying noises. The best thing I can say is that the lyrics aren't as embarrassing as your average Daddy Yankee or, yes, a Pitbull verse, but at least they would have varying degrees of personality when you remember all the idiotic lines, whereas this song, it's got an annoying loop that goes through your skull like a meat tenderizer. So yeah, surprise, absolutely none of you. Mi Gente by J Balvin and Willy, it's getting worse the week. Dear God, I know this is getting some viral swell right now, and people are actually buying this song. Let's hope it just stalls out fast. Let's not have this become a hit. As for the best, the only song I'd really consider good rather than just passable this week is Heartache on the Dance Floor by Jon Pardi. Sorry, Tyler, the rhymes seem to be more on point next time around. I'm hoping the album's better. And coming up next week, you know what, I'd like to say Jay-Z, but these days you can never really tell with the Hot 100. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse.